Hello and welcome to a look at a 4x4 off-road racing for the Commodore 64, a game that was released by Epyx. The concept of this game is somewhat cool, I suppose. Take a 4x4 on one of four different tracks, playing one of four different difficulty settings, and try to win the race. They have definitely been doubling down on the number 4, and I don't think that is by coincidence. Depending on the difficulty level, you will have various different levels of opposition, of course, you have to overcome. And before you set off, you will have to set up your vehicle. Unless you're playing on the lowest difficulty setting, in that case, you just select the track and select the car, and then you are off to whatever race. You are encouraged to play at the lowest difficulty setting until you get a feel for how the game plays and the time it takes to reach different checkpoints and that kind of stuff. The game is trying to be a 4x4 epic off-road racing game as well as a sort of a simulation kind of thing. Because of the different vehicles have different components which can fail. That is not something that is present on the lowest difficulty setting, but on higher difficulty settings, the different components you can see on the screen at the moment, the interface, bottom left side, the timer, your speedometer to the right of that, and then your RPM counter, which is not super relevant. And then you have icons for the different main components of the engine that can fail, and if they fail, they will need repairing. Not important on the lowest difficulty setting even, but every other difficulty setting it has a relevance, and I will get to that when we talk gameplay. Each race consists of 2 checkpoints and a finish line, and depending on how well you are driving and how fast you are driving, you will have a certain position when you reach whatever checkpoint. If you are playing on higher difficulty levels, of course your vehicle can take some damage, which will need repairing, and you will need to refuel, which, as you can imagine, take some time. And any time you spend doing all that kind of stuff is time given to the computer resource to try and overtake you. They also, of course, can run into trouble, but you have no idea of which cars may be running into trouble, so it just feels like a dice roll or coin flip kind of thing. The 4 different vehicles you can choose from has various different statistics such as weight, endurance, top speed, miles per gallon, carrying capacity, and that kind of stuff. And not something that is relevant for the lowest difficulty, but at higher difficulty levels where you have to set up your vehicle before you set off whatever stretch of road you have decided to race on, and you have to pick and choose whether you might need an extra fuel tank and how much extra fuel you might need, if you need spare parts, if you need coolant, and that kind of stuff. And of course, because I mean, fun is fun, we throw in some gimmicky options like buying a six-pack, because drinking and driving is smart. No, it isn't, don't do it, but I suppose it is some half-hearted attempt at throwing in some humor thing in the game. I suppose you could always have a beer between checkpoints and then sit and do nothing for the next 12 hours while the beer is being processed by your body so you can legally drive again. Yeah. Whatever the case, that is where the so-called simulation part of this game comes in. Basically working out what capabilities your vehicle has and trying to compensate for the weaknesses the vehicle may have by having extra components. And of course, depending on how much you can avoid taking damage while you're driving. That also indicates what type of extra parts you may require in order to be able to repair the car. In this specific clip, My transmission's gone and I have no way of repairing it, so I'm forever crippled in my maximum speed, and I end up just smashing the car up to game over because just can't compete, can't win, and it would have been a complete waste of time to continue. As you're driving around on the various different road stretches, you have to avoid various different obstacles. Some of them natural, like tree branches and stones, and of course the occasional tire that likely has fallen off another vehicle. And depending on how you smack into them, if you smack into them, and what speed, your car is going to behave in various different funky ways, some of them gentle and some of them absolutely not so gentle. But of course the other natural obstacle on stretches of roads like this would be other cars. The other cars are trying desperately to avoid all the crap on the road themselves, so if you avoid them avoiding the crap, they are relatively simple to overtake. But there's also a vehicle called a Doom Buggy, which was on the screen before, the black vehicle you saw, which will do anything and everything to hamper you, slow you down, block you, and damage you. Because of course we all know that's great game design and absolutely amazing fun in a racing game. Yeah. From a graphical point of view, I wish they had spent as much time making the driving graphics exciting as they did making the presentation graphics exciting, but alas, they didn't. The presentation side of things looks nice, the in-race graphics are passable at best. You can identify the different vehicles, the different obstacles, but it's a bit bland looking. There's a sense of speed, but it's not exactly great. What can I say? The title tune is a sort of funky hipster kind of thing, trying to get you in the mood for some epic, exciting, accelerating 4x4 off-road racing. A tune that doesn't belong in my top 5 playlist on Commodore 64 set tunes, but I can endure it. That's what I will say about it. Which I won't say about the sound effects, because they are misplaced. They don't sound particularly right, if I can say such a thing. And of course, the most important sound effect, which is the sound effect you're going to be listening to an awful lot, the engine sound, is identical irrelevant of what vehicle you are using, and all 4 vehicles sound like an undertuned lawnmower going through gravel. Yeah. Controls: left to move left, right to move right, up to slam the brakes, down to decelerate gently, and fire to accelerate. Irrelevant of car and surface the car is on, it feels slippery. Of course, the more speed you apply to get your vehicle moving, the more slippery it's going to feel. This game, by various different computer magazines, got an average rating of 51%. And in all honesty, I think that's a fair rating. The so-called simulation aspect is gimmicky, and it's more you choosing the wrong components that screws you up than picking the right components helping you. The behavior of the Doom Buggy and the presence of the Doom Buggy completely and utterly wrecks the gameplay enjoyment. The excitement dies out after you've had enough of seeing your car being tossed around by a tantrum-fueled 4-year-old. And I know that I've been playing thousands of games since I played this, but even back then, when the game was released, I felt that this game was decidedly not fun to play, and that is definitely an opinion that hasn't changed. Not exactly an Epyx epic. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.